Let's welcome Jenny Dell, who will be on the sideline for number 9 Alabama at number 11 Ole Miss. Jenny, Nick Saban heading to Oxford, coming off Alabama's second loss this season in overtime in Death Valley. Look, if anybody can respond to a loss, it is Nick Saban. But you got to wonder, is this Alabama team a little dejected, or can they kind of use this as firepower? What do you think?
I think it's all going to be firepower. You heard there was a certain personality on another network that came out and he said, the Saban dynasty is closing. And Lane Kiffin came back and he said, can you please stop saying things like that? Because when you say things like that, you're giving him goat fuel. So I don't know if you're familiar, but Nick Saban often says that there's rat poison. That's the media kind of taking over and saying things, whether it be negative, positive, kind of just the media hoopla. But Lane Kiffin came out and he said, you're giving the man some goat fuel. And then he goes out and he proves why he's the GOAT every time. Kiffin even came out and he tweeted, please stop poking the bear. Now, Saturday, it'll be Bama's 164th game since the start of the 2011 season. This will be the first time the Tide are playing a regular season game without having a clear chance to win the national title. So obviously there's things that could potentially happen where they might get into that position, but this is a very different position for this Alabama team to be in. And I feel like it's just going to give them that rocket fuel to go out there and dominate. And you have to remember, we heard it in the package before with Jeremy, but Lane Kiffin worked under Nick Saban. The man knows Nick Saban better than a lot of people out there. So he knows what he's dealing with when it comes to Saban and this Crimson Tide team.
Jenny, I know you've talked to Lane Kiffin over the course of the season. He is very proud of this Ole Miss offense, how they've been able to change things from game to game. They score fast, they score often. How do they plan to implement that against this Alabama defense?
Yeah, you mentioned it right there. Ole Miss is one of 2 teams along with Michigan that has scored first in every single game this season. They score fast, they score often. What they've been able to do offensively is really impressive. And I talked to Lane Kiffin and he said, we have a good offensive balance. We feel very confident in what our game plan is. And every game is independent. Every game plan is different every week. And we're a little bit unique that way. You never really know what you're going to see from us when you're playing us. He's not saying that might be good or bad, but he's saying they change it a lot. And as far as the fast and often, they lead the country in yards in the first quarter. They're second in the country in points per game in the first quarter. And they play very fast. The Rebels, they like to get the ball and go. They're third in the country in plays per minute, which is going to prove to be a very tough task for Alabama.
Jenny, Bryce Young coming off one of the worst performances of his career. Look, all eyes are on him, especially heading into the draft. Some players use performances like that as motivation. They think about it a lot. Others try to put it totally behind him. How do you think, from talking to him, I know you're going to talk to him later today, what his response is going to be heading into Saturday?
I think you have pros on that team. You talk about Bryce Young, you talk about Will Anderson. They've kind of been through it all. And yes, they've seen a lot of success, but they have those leadership qualities to be able to go out there and lead this team in the right way and know that, you have to put the previous game behind you and just go ahead. Now, this isn't Bryce Young that we're used to seeing. He's completed 25 of 51 passes against LSU last weekend. That's just the second time in his career he's completed fewer than 50% of his passes in the game. And regarding his health, Coach Saban said physically he's fine. He said we just need to do a better job around Bryce. We got to do a better job protecting him. We need to trust that people are going to do what they're supposed to do. And that has been an issue this season. Now, Young, he's reached 300 pass yards in just 3 games this season. So he's itching to have a breakout game. And I think just talking to him and knowing the confidence that he has in himself and his ability in this team, that this might be the week where he just gets out of that funk.
We hear from Bryce Young a lot more than we hear from Will Anderson, but you mentioned him there. Look, coming into the season, people are arguing, look, this is the clear-cut guy. If the team's not taking a quarterback, he should be number 1 overall. He's been held in check the past 5 games or so. He could have gone into the draft last season. He chose to come back. Jenny, why did he choose to come back? And what is his approach moving forward in the rest of the season when we've seen him sort of held in check?
Yeah, I was able to talk to him early on in this season. I'm looking forward to hearing his take on things now. But he came back because he wasn't pleased with the way that last season ended. He didn't want to leave this college football experience with a loss in a national championship. And he truly believed that he was going to rewrite his story this year and that this was going to be his moment to showcase what this team's all about and go out on top. So to see what's been happening with him is a little bit different and interesting. But he, as I mentioned with Bryce Young, the leadership qualities that these 2 players have, Will Anderson especially, Bryce came out and said he's the heartbeat of this team. There's such passion that just oozes out of him. He's a great person on the field and off the field. And yeah, he's not having the statistical season that he did last year. He is still tied for 8th with 13 tackles for loss on the year. And he said, no matter the outcome of the games, I'm super proud of all of these players Monday through Friday. We work our butts off. The effort isn't the issue. We just have to lock it in. It's a mental game. And, I wouldn't want to go to war with anyone else. And when he was talking about this team and what happened last week against LSU, he said it was just mental mistakes that they had. So they just need to clean it up this week. And they've had a really good week of practice so far. So they're hoping to go out there and perform.
Ginny Dell, we appreciate it. About to hop on the phone with Alabama there, about to head down to Mississippi. Safe travels. Can't wait to watch you on the sideline for the SEC on CBS. We have a doubleheader coming up this weekend. Missouri traveling to Tennessee. Tennessee looking to respond after their bad loss to Georgia, favored by 20.5 in this one. And then number 9, Alabama traveling to number 11, Ole Miss. Is Alabama looking at 3 losses after kickoff, 3:30 Eastern on Saturday. Let's welcome in 2 of the guys behind the Cover 3 podcast. College football experts Patterson and Barrett Sallee here, continuing our coverage, getting us ready for the SEC on CBS doubleheader, starting with Missouri at number 5, Tennessee. Barrett, I'll start with you here. After losing to Georgia, Tennessee's schedule isn't that difficult, so they're looking to make statement wins to try to still get their foot in the playoff here. They're favored by 20.5 in this game. The total is 56 and a hook. What do you think about the Volunteers' chances in this one?
Yeah, I'll take Tennessee. I mean, the hook really helps because the 3-touchdown win cashes. But I think the biggest thing with this is that they realized that they are a one-trick pony last week. They realized that they have no changeup. They have no curveball. And right now, I think in the early part of this game, they're going to try to do something different. They're going to try to mix things up just to understand what they can do if they get to a bigger game down the stretch. And then second quarter, early third, they're going to know they need style points. So they're going to crank it up. They're going to do all kinds of damage through the air. This is a pretty good Missouri defense. So maybe they flip the roles a little bit. But I do think Tennessee, because they need style points, will pull away in the end and keep their foot on the gas, leave their starters in pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, the trend is not my friend here, because the trend would say that Missouri, which has had almost all of its games go under the total, and Tennessee, which has had 3 out of its last 4 games go under the total, they would say take the under. But you're crazy if I'm going to take an under when Tennessee needs these style points. Now, do I think that Tennessee is going to get us to 57 points on its own? No, but I do think that this Missouri team is going to look at some of the success that Georgia was able to have through the passing attack. And while Missouri doesn't field an overly dynamic passing attack, I think that as we saw the headlines recently of, Eli Drinkwitz getting a little bit of a pay raise, a little bit of an extension, more money for the assistants, they're not going to go out there and get totally embarrassed. So Tennessee's going to do most of the work. I think the Volunteers are going to be able to give us a 42, maybe even 45 on their own. But I do think that Missouri, maybe a little bit at the beginning and maybe a little bit at the end, they're going to be able to go and get us to 14, 17 points. And all of that, again, Tennessee's defensive issues exposed by Georgia, Tennessee needing style points, all that is going to lead to something that breaks with the trend with both these teams recently. We go over the total.
Everything here on the side of Tennessee. Barrett going with Tennessee minus the 20.5. Chip saying they need those style points, so look for a lot of points scored here. All right, guys, we have number 9 now, 2 loss, Alabama. At number 11, Ole Miss. Look, if I'm Ole Miss, I am smelling blood in the water when it comes to this Alabama team, right? We know Nick Saban responds well to losses, but Chip, what is the recipe that has been laid out for teams to beat Alabama? And can Alabama in this game cover the 12 that they're favored by?
I'm not going to trust Alabama to cover the 12 because this is a true road environment. And Alabama over the last 2 seasons, when it goes on the road, its offense in particular has not really been consistent. Against Arkansas, they got off to a very fast start. Bryce Young leaves the game with an injury. Then they start to sputter a little bit. A couple long touchdown runs from Jahmyr Gibbs make that look a little bit better. But, the Texas game is another example. Obviously, LSU is another example. The way that Alabama offense really struggled mightily throughout the entire first half against the Tigers. I just think that this is going to be a spot where the blood in the water that Ole Miss is going to sense is that Alabama is playing away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. I think that there is a way that Alabama can try to take the playbook from last year. You remember, get your popcorn ready, and then Nick Saban unplugged the popcorn machine by playing so slow that Ole Miss never got a chance to get into a rhythm. But Ole Miss had a late bye week here. I think that they are going to be so much fresher. I think they're going to be well prepared to go out there with a good game plan against this Alabama defense. And the way that Nick Saban was talking in the press conference about trying to motivate his players based on their own professional futures, yikes. I'm wondering where this Alabama team is at mentally. Give me Ole Miss and all of these points. Crimson Tide might win this game, but I am not trusting this Crimson Tide team at this point in the year in a true road environment.
You know, Chip, I'll take the points, but I'll take Ole Miss straight up as well. I think you're right. Everything you said is 100% right. That you could not pick out a better time to play Alabama if you're Ole Miss. Like you said, Lane Kiffin with 2 weeks to draw up plays against his former boss. You know he's going to use that time wisely. And then, on top of what Chip said, the weakness for Alabama, I think, plays into the strength of Ole Miss's defense, and that's tackles for loss. Ole Miss's defense, look, it's not great. It's maybe not even adequate at times, but they do get after the quarterback, and Alabama's offensive line has been pretty dreadful all year long. And like you said, Chip, road environment, loud crowd. We've seen what happens when Alabama faces that situation for the last couple of years. Plus, on top of it, you look at how Ole Miss operates offensively, very similar to what Tennessee does. And so because of that, I think they're going to take advantage of Alabama's weakness defensively, which is its secondary. So I think, look, take the points. I'm surprised this is a double-digit line. I'm surprised it's even within over a touchdown. But take Ole Miss straight up as well, because I think Ole Miss is in a perfect spot and matches up well against a team that has lost 2 of its last 3.
Come to the SIP and be prepared. I can't imagine what's going to happen if Alabama goes to 3 losses here. All right, guys, best bet in the SEC this weekend. Barrett, we'll start with you.
I'll go Auburn and lay the points against Texas A&M. Look, that place was flat for the last couple of weeks. Jordan-Hare Stadium is not normally like that. But if you watch last week's game against Mississippi State, yeah, it was on the road, but those players will play for Carnell Williams, and those fans love the fact that a legend is now coaching their team. Yeah, it's too little too late in terms of contending, but they're going to get behind these players. And on top of that, I think Carnell's impact in terms of what he preaches offensively has made a statement. You go back and look at what happened in that second half. Man, whatever Carnell told him in the locker room, it worked. They went more with Robbie Ashford on the ground. They didn't try to make him anything that he wasn't. They got both running backs involved, and I think Texas A&M's broken, man. They don't have the depth defense. They don't have the depth anywhere, whether it's sickness or injuries or whatever. This is a lost season, and they are running into a hornet's nest in Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday night.
When we're breaking down NFL draft clips and Ryan Wilson is telling you where Will Levis is going to go in the NFL draft, we are going to be showing you a lot of clips of Saturday's performance against Vanderbilt. Because this is one time after Kentucky's offense has really struggled for a couple of weeks where we know that Will Levis can cook. So he's going to light up Vanderbilt's secondary in this game. Georgia's on deck next week. You're not going to get any highlights from that. So as we're trying to really build up Will Levis, as we're trying to really build up this Kentucky offense, his own NFL draft stock, I think they're going to let Levis absolutely fry Vanderbilt's defense. And we go Kentucky team total over 33.
Guys, unlike some years, a lot to be decided still in the SEC as we enter Week 11. Thank you guys so much. Recapping their picks here. Remember, we have an SEC on CBS doubleheader this weekend. Chip likes the over, the 56.5 in Missouri at Tennessee, saying Tennessee's going to be looking for those style points there. Barrett laying the points with the Volunteers. Ole Miss plus the 12, both of them like that. Barrett says, you know what? Take Ole Miss on the money line as well. Potentially Alabama looking at 3 losses heading into this one. And you see both of their best bets there. Chip liking the team total for Kentucky against Vanderbilt. Best bet, Auburn -1.5. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.